Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Coach JC. Everyone gather around should be a good one today. Today's topic is you want to press her, stay consistent like you was in the beginning. In the beginning of relationships, the dating phase, the courtship, it's always good. The man always, just showing up on time, giving you flowers, y'all talking good, everything, conversation's pretty good. And guess what? 2, 3, 4 months into the dating phase, or when y'all finally get into a relationship, guess what? It falls off. Even when you get married, it falls off. So as a man, you gotta stay consistent when you're out there courting a woman. I know it can get tiresome, it can get overwhelming, but you gotta be consistent with it because that's really the only way that's the only really way you're gonna be able to get to a woman is if you're able to court her, date her, court her, just like y'all first met, like fire, it has to be there. It's just like when you get a job, you get a job, you're excited, you go through the hiring phase, you get done with all the, talking to this person, that person, they finally give you the offer letter. Now, guess what? You're excited, And guess what? Having 3, 6 months into it, you just kind of get into what everybody else is doing. You don't really be in your own mindset. And you get stagnant, you get lazy. You start doing the stuff you was doing before. So in order to really beat all of that, it's really just to stay hungry. Stay hungry, stay consistent, and just to understand that, hey, you got a date, got to at least plan, at least one date a week, minimum, That means going to the park, going to the movies, going out to eat. You can even be, getting an ice cream cake, just something simple. You don't have to be over dramatic, but just try to plan something at least once a week. Like I said, it does your life do get busy, working, you have kids, and just in general, you're going to get busy, but you got to at least have at least once a week. That's the one thing I do try to do. As far as my wife's concerned, we try to always get at least one date a week, regardless of what's going on as far as ourselves, work, and of course Olivia, what I'm saying? So he could be a handful, or sometimes a date night can be included with her. So, just try to get at least once a week, just stay consistent, just to stay firm, sometimes you can't get the overlaps where the 1 week coming to 2 weeks, coming to 3 weeks, like, man, like we ain't gone out, we ain't done nothing serious. Or sometimes you want to have date night at the house. Sometimes you want date night at the house. Nothing wrong, making a nice meal or, watching a nice movie and stuff. So, it could be done, and it's done for people that's really intentional about the why. Like I said, everybody got a busy schedule, but like I said, when you're in a marriage, when you're in a middle relationship, you got to spend time together. It might not be a whole lot of time, because like I said, y'all both are busting, y'all both are grinding, y'all both are hustling, and guess what? Y'all ain't gonna have too much time together, but I should still at least a good 30, 40 minutes a week for yourselves, Put the phone down, put social media down, all that, and just to try to focus on each other, So that's kind of one thing that I noticed. The ones that are pretty much successful, those are the ones that are consistently taking each other out, or doing date nights at the house. You have to always mix it up. You can't be stagnant, you can't be one dimensional, you can't want to keep doing the same thing. And my thing is, like I said, with me, I'm talking like guilty as far as like restaurants and stuff. I'm like, I just like going to simple places like Outback and Chili's and stuff like that. My wife, she be like, nah, I ain't trying to go there. I want to go to Bonefish. I want to go to, I don't know what else she like to go to, but she like to go to different places and stuff. And I just be like, I'm good on that stuff, but like I said, but it ain't about me, it's about her. So, end of the day, I'm obliged to it because that's why I'm married. So, I gotta follow suit. Other than that, just be consistent with her. It's easy in the beginning to be, heavy on her, or roses, flowers, candy. Let me pick you up, let me drop you, all that kind of stuff. It's easy in the beginning because a new spark. What are you going to do when the spark is over with? That's where the discipline, that's where consistency comes in. You know, once the honeymoon phase is over with, you know, you still got to be consistent with it. You know, you still got to be consistent. You still got to continue to, you know, date her, court her. You know, just little things like that. Like I said, I know life does get hectic. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, it doesn't. You have all these time like you do when you're in your younger years, but you know, just always gotta find time. Just always find time to devote to one another. Like I said, date night, it could be going to church, you can be going to the park, it can be bowling, it can be rollerblading, you're going to different kind of events, you know. And like I said, just be healthy, you know, just be different with it, you know, at least try to play at least once a week, just something different, you know. And if it's like something that y'all like to do similarly, you know, try to figure out what each other like to do, places y'all can go to. Like I said, for us, like I said, it might just be different places we try, you know, like different type of food we like to try. So, you know, everybody relationship, marriage is gonna be different, but you know, one thing, like I said, the ones that strive, it's 20, 30, 40 years, they the ones that continue to date and they continue to stay challenged. So that's all I really have to say. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Anytime a video like we need to drop, feel free to drop below. Till next time out, Coach JC.